It's enough to make you want to go outside and play, really, isn't it? I was just having a little look at the Facebook pages to see what it was that you liked to play on when you were a kid. Favourite playtime activity? Lucetta says, playing on the swings and the slides was fun. I loved being a kid. Life seemed more free back then. I suppose that's true. Linda loved building cubbies. Dan, well, he's got some comments about how long it takes to work things out. Charo says those barrels that you stand on. Those massive rocket ships that you could go halfway up and they had a slippery dip all the way through it. Ah, yes. I've forgotten about the rocket ships. And huge forts and sliding poles. When those plastic-looking things came to my primary school, I wondered why they were bringing baby toys in. It does seem that we spend a lot of time trying to build things that are a little bit more interesting or adult designed for playgrounds these days. Was it the monkey bars or the seesaw that really got you going? Well, maybe all you need is a bale of hay and a tyre. Brendon Hyndman is from the RMIT University School of Education, Health and Physical Education, and they've just spent 2 years looking into one school particularly to see what the kids played with and how that affected them overall. Brendon joins me this afternoon. Brendon, very good afternoon to you.
Yeah, hi Ed. It's good to be on.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether you just slid down a slippery dip to get into the show.
No. I was very much a structured sport type kid when I was growing up, but this research has taken a whole different angle.
And it's also taken a whole little while. A couple of the Facebook page messages that I've been getting this afternoon are saying, why did it take so long to get this together? I mean, what did you actually do? You spent 2 years in one school changing the stuff around to see what happened?
Not at all. Actually, we introduced the items to see how the kids were actually going to teach us how they actually want to play. So the reason it took so long was because a lot of interventions, when they're conducted and they're evaluated, they look at it over, maybe 3 months. And what we wanted to do was a long-term follow-up. So we did a follow-up at 8 months. We did a follow-up again at 2.5 years. And we found the physical activity actually increased and sedentary behaviour. So you're sitting and standing in the schoolyard, which is quite detrimental to children's health in the long term. That actually went down by half over the 2.5 years. And the proportion of children in the schoolyard sitting and standing.
It seems to me that the whole notion of play has changed, and things that were just slightly dangerous seem to be out of. You're not allowed to hang on a monkey bar or run around on a twirling roundabout like I used to and get thrown on the ground and get smashed up. It seems to me that the playgrounds that you see nowadays are just a little bit too. Well, they're a little bit too safe. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And these there's a degree of challenge to these items. So the kids can mould the items to how they want to actually play, and a lot of the equipment in schools, as you said, they can't be moved. They're very structured in nature with a set purpose, a set regime, a set location. So there is that element of safety, and the kids like to actually create their own play and have that degree of challenge.
So the research that you've been doing looks at the type of playgrounds that have been built right across the entire grounds. And, it sort of suggests that, in fact, what was built was not giving kids the creativity they looked for.
Yeah. So with your fixed playground equipment, the kids can't actually mould to how they see fit. But with this intervention, there was a whole range of materials introduced. There was bike tyres, there was broomsticks, buckets, hula hoops, netting, and all these type of things. And they went away with these materials and taught us how they want to play with in the playground. So if they're not playing their cricket and football and those type of activities that I used to play, and some of the students actually, they can create their obstacle courses, they can stack things and build spaceships, cars, castles and rockets, and they can create all these ranges of and it can vary from day to day. What we found over the 2.5 years was that when we first introduced the items, the kids would play around, they would run around with the items, and then after 8 months, we found that the students were actually, they were building construction. So they were building the rocket ships a little bit more and the boats at 8 months. And then we went back at 2.5 years, and what we found was they would build the structures early in the week, so the spaceships and boats and those type of things, and then they would run around them and play those Tiggy-type games or, dramatic, creative type play around those structures. So it was very interesting over the 2.5 years.
So you put hay bales, milk crates, tarpaulins, those noodles, the swimmy noodles, buckets, cardboard boxes and tyre tubes.
Yep.
All of the things that essentially don't cost you very much money at all. It seems that schools and maybe councils possibly are spending a lot of money where they don't necessarily need to spend the money if you're recycling those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with education cutbacks. This is a very cheap, cost-effective intervention, and a lot of these materials can be found around the home environment. And one of the key objectives for educators is to replicate physical activity and play behaviour in the home environment. And with these items found around the home in the neighbourhood, the students can actually recreate some of those play behaviours within their home. So it's a really fantastic outcome from that. And it basically it really enhanced the informal curriculum of the recess, which is quite forgotten in the schoolyard. In the educational setting. And so a lot of the schools are very focused on classroom learning, and some of the social and engaging benefits within the playground were quite incredible, really.
So once you get those play things going and they're moving around and they're building things collectively, that social inclusion starts to show up in behavioural stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially with bullying, a big problem in society at the moment, students were playing with others they wouldn't normally associate with. So they would have different roles. If they were creating a play area, they could be creating a rocket ship or boat or whatever it may be. So they can actually model their behaviour on others if they don't feel comfortable around other students. They were starting to work as teams, so they could have a different role. One of the students could be sourcing the items from somewhere else on the play paddock, and then another student could be actually building the materials. Another student could be creating a border around that structure as well. And
it's funny because when you look at the Facebook pages and you're talking to people who are obviously parents or have been in school been out of school for a long, long time, the sorts of things that they make reference to, standing on barrels or building cubby houses or playing on swings, or I think somebody says, getting on a rope and swinging over a big, deep gully. Those are the things that we look back on kind of fondly, don't see them in our playgrounds, but possibly are the things that should be drawn back into the curriculum somehow to counteract the sorts of things you're talking about.
Yeah, and even with the simple items, the students were finding ways to actually get a thrill out of things. So one of the incredible play behaviours was there was actually a hay bale, and they were using it as a conveyor belt over the water containers. So they were rolling the hay bale over the water containers, and that was quite fascinating. And they would create their own thrills with balancing beams. They would be jumping over and sideways over hay bales, and they would have rough and tumble type play. They would roll around in the tyre tubes and roll those around like hula hoops. And what we actually found when we introduced the play balls, which are normally associated with this structured game type activities, they're actually using those items, the play balls, for cannons and chimneys for their structures. So they had a bit more of a creative type focus.
Like a giant building set, the block building set. They've just gone in. So there we are. You did it in particularly one school. Just the age range of the kids. We're not talking toddlers, are we? We're talking sort of primary school aged kids.
No, yeah, not at all. So it was actually introduced in Sydney around 2008, 2009 with 5 to 7-year-olds. And this is what formed our research direction. So they found a range of physical activity benefits, those social benefits that we found, the level of engagement in 5 to 7-year-olds. And what we did, we introduced this on a larger scale, mainly to look at how this might impact on physical activity behaviour. As there's a lot of barriers on physical education these days, and we're looking at trying to reduce that burden on phys ed departments and creating a program to develop physical activity, which is quite important. But
well,
in the process,
as I say, and it's cheaper, and you've found out. I would think that education departments should just go out and buy some old tyres, get a milk crate, a hay bale, give it an old bucket. It's the theory that basically says with Christmas coming, kids don't play with the toy, they play with the cardboard box. Isn't that it?
Yeah, and I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the comments that I've received quite regularly. Is that the students, the children get these presents, and they're all excited about the present, and then they move the present to the side, and they're playing with the cardboard boxes. And however, within the Ballarat environment where the intervention took place, because it was so wet, the cardboard boxes was probably the worst item to be introduced because they fell out of shape quite easily and they became a bit rubbishy in the playground. But it might be a bit better in the dry season in Darwin.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it was a long way away from the dry season in Darwin, although, it's quite nice. Alice Springs currently 23 degrees, so that's not bad playing with it. Sedentary behaviour might be sort of a bit more acceptable in 37 degrees in the centre of the territory at the moment, but 61% of children to 30% of children in 2.5 years just changed their sedentary behaviour in the playground simply because they got movable playground or play equipment, very simple stuff, rather than those lovely, beautiful, adult-designed, beautiful-looking, fixed playgrounds that tend to be around. Interesting stuff, Brendon. Lovely to have you on the program. Thanks very much for spending some time with us, and I'll let you go off and play.